online today to hear about CAIR's newest online announcement for CAIR's newest lawsuit challenging of the constitutional watch list and the filing of the lawsuit. It comes on the heels of the 20th anniversary of the creation of the watch list. This newest challenge to the watch list of Muslim Americans involves plaintiffs from around the country, as well as some here from Michigan, and others who have significant ties to this state. As we know, Michigan is home to one of the largest populations of Muslim Americans in the country, and as such, the watch listing of millions of American Muslims has significant impacts on Michigan Muslims that go far beyond the inconvenience and delays that Muslims experience during local and international air travel. I am joined here today by CAIR National's Litigation Director, Lena Masri, who will be talking more about the litigation. Attorney Lena Masri has returned to Michigan to announce this lawsuit, but many people may know that she was CAIR Michigan's staff attorney previously, and she filed one of the first ever lawsuits challenging the watch list right here in Michigan. I'm going to turn it over to Lena Masri. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Lena Masri. I'm the National Litigation Director and General Counsel of CAIR, the Council on American Islamic Relations. Yesterday, we filed a lawsuit in the United States District Court for the District of Massachusetts on behalf of 12 American Muslims that have been illegally targeted by the terrorist watch list against 29 federal government agencies. This lawsuit seeks not only to remove the names of our plaintiffs from the terrorist watch list, but it also seeks to end the unconstitutional terrorist watch listing system. The federal government has long denied our characterization that the terrorist watch list is a de facto Muslim registry. Earlier this year, we obtained leaked portions of the watch list from 2019, the selectee list and the no-fly list. Combined, the leaked portions of the watch list that we obtained included approximately 1.25 million names. It came as no surprise that almost all of the names were identifiably Muslim and Middle Eastern in origin. And in fact, this was confirmed according to an expert statistical analysis that we commissioned, that 98.3% of the names in the combined lists are identifiably Muslim and Middle Eastern in origin. Think about that. That's more than 1.22 million out of 1.25 million names on the terrorist watch list that are identifiably Muslim and Middle Eastern sounding names. This cannot happen by accident. Because the watch list's inclusion standards are so permissive, so pliable, and discriminatory against a single religious minority community, it is completely ineffective at protecting national security. On the other hand, the federal terrorist watch list has been effective in terrorizing innocent American Muslims and rendering them second-class citizens for the rest of their lives. Innocent American Muslims that have never been indicted or convicted of any terror-related crime. In fact, if the federal government had evidence of terrorism-related activities, then it would have brought criminal charges against them and tried them in the court of law, just as it does every other American citizen. What's worse is that even if the federal government makes a determination that it made a mistake, that it mistakenly added someone to the watch list, despite its already loose standards, federal government agencies continue to retain their historical watch list status and use it to continue to impose consequences upon them for the rest of their lives. This happened to one of our plaintiffs, Muhammad Khairullah, who is a mayor from New Jersey. Even though the federal government determined that he should not have been included in the terrorist watch list in the first place, the Secret Service still had access to his historical watch list status and used it to disinvite him from an Eid dinner celebration that he was invited to attend at the White House. On the 20th anniversary of the terrorist watch list, we are asking the United States District Court for the District of Massachusetts to declare the terrorist watch list unconstitutional. We are asking the court to end an era where the federal government has been able to illegally target American Muslims without any transparency or accountability or congressional authorization. We are asking the court to prohibit the federal government from continuing to use the terrorist watch list to subject American Muslims to mass surveillance, to inflict upon them sweeping consequences that impact their daily lives, and to render them second-class citizens. The experiences of our plaintiffs in this lawsuit and others that we filed across the country are similar to the experiences of thousands of other American Muslims who are also targeted by the Watchlist. The federal government disseminates the stigmatizing label of known or suspected terrorist to federal government agencies, over 18,000 state and local law enforcement agencies, over 500 private entities, and dozens of foreign countries, all of which take actions to inflict harm on our plaintiffs and American Muslims on the list. American Muslims on the list are publicly humiliated in front of their friends, family members, and coworkers. They are surveilled and harassed when they travel. Their private data is downloaded from all of their electronic devices every time they return from an international flight or cross the border by land. They are interrogated about their religious beliefs and practices. They have lost their jobs. They have been denied security clearances. They have been denied licenses, gun permits, and immigration benefits. Their immigration applications for family members are stuck in indefinite administrative processing, oftentimes indefinitely separating families. Their bank accounts are shut down, and others have been exiled from the United States because they were added to the no-fly list after they left the country. We have Mr. Nidal Al-Takash with us, one of our plaintiffs who has suffered horrors when traveling. So much so that he developed PTSD and stopped traveling for 3 years. I will let him explain the ordeals that he faced in his own words. But before I conclude, I want to recognize all of the members of my legal team, both those out front and those behind the scenes, that have put an unimaginable number of hours combined to put this lawsuit together. It comes as the culmination of nearly a decade of work through lawsuits that we have filed across the country, where we have taken deposition testimony from the FBI, the Terrorist Screening Center, TSA, CBP, and other federal government officials, and obtained thousands of documents about the watch list. I also want to recognize the heroism of our plaintiffs, including Mr. Al-Takash, who will be speaking momentarily, and our plaintiffs in other lawsuits that we have filed. It's no small thing to come out publicly and say that the government has designated you as a known or suspected terrorist. They have all put themselves out there because they don't want other American Muslims to suffer as they do. Jazakumullah khair.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for the whole team for the hard work. So today is a special day for me. It is a freedom day, I will call it. It's a day where we declare basically freedom and from the Department of Homeland Security, discrimination, harassment, and humiliation. So the First Amendment of the United States Constitution guarantees the freedom of religion or infringe on religious freedom. My First Amendment rights were violated on July 10th, 2017 at Detroit McNamara Terminal. When flight Delta 87 arrived to Detroit at 2:20 p.m., 2 officers announced on a loudspeaker for all passengers to stay seated. And my name and my kid's name were announced to exit the airplane. That alone, it will spark a lot of fear. That was the first moment my life and my kid's life has changed. All of the citizens of the United States are considered innocent until proven guilty by a court of law. However, I was treated by the Department of Homeland Security and its entities as guilty until proven innocent. This was a prime example of the Department of Homeland Security, including CBP, ICE, and atrocity, harassment, humiliation, and discrimination against me and my family. The amendment also provides the right to face the accuser and my accuser, and provide me with evidence justifying why I'm stopped and why my family and I were discriminated against. In July 10th, 2017, it was a trip back from Lebanon, me and my kids. I was met by two officers at the airplane door, and one of the officers, I remember, her name is Metz. I complied with the request. They requested me to, basically not requested, they forced us, like, you have to give the password for the phone, which I did. I complied. Then they started asking me about general questions, and a little bit after that, those questions started be specific toward my religion. I was asked whether I'm a Sunni or Shia. Do I pray? Do I go to mosque for Friday prayers? Do I attend the Muslim holiday celebration? Whether my wife wear hijab or not. I was harassed without remorse from the CBP officers and felt humiliated, violated my religion freedom, and feared for my safety and my kids' safety. I was questioned for 3.5 hours. After that, I was released. In June 2018, I was heading to Lebanon to visit my mom. She's ill. And I was selected with my kids for additional screening and additional pat down and all the humiliation stuff. I was also asked to wait about 45 minutes while they brought an explosive specialist to check my bag. I was traveling with my kids. That was outrageous. Then on the way returning back from Lebanon, 2 weeks later, in July 2018, the same questioning, the same process of pulling out of the airplane, the same questioning, even though they have a copy of the previous questions, but they still question the same questions about religion and stuff. I feared for my safety and my kids' safety, and I comply with all the requests. In December 10th, 2018, my mom was in intensive care. On the way coming back, I was questioned just about the same exact questions. And as a matter of fact, they have a copy of the previous question about my religion and all the other stuff. But what was different this time is I was questioned for 6.5 hours while I was ill. And I was questioned by 3 different forces, some of them that identify themselves, and some they didn't identify themselves as the FBI. But later I found out who they are. I was questioned for 6.5 hours, and because they can't hold me any longer, I was released. For the next 5 months, I was not able to sleep. My condition got so bad, I developed PTSD, and I had to seek medical attention. November 7th, 2019, I was traveling for work, traveling back from Sarnia, from Port Huron, Port Huron, after a quick business trip. And which the trip I must do. I did not take any laptop or phones. Figured probably that would make it easy for me to cross the border and not being harassed. Upon arrival at the border, at the US border, my colleague who was driving the car was asked to shut off his vehicle and hand him the keys. Next thing I hear on my side, nothing but a clunking sound of machine guns pointed at me. Multiple machine guns pointed at me. Just imagine the fear that would give you, just alone. I was asked to get out of the car and placed in handcuffs. I was also still ill. I'm diabetic. I was questioned for 3.5 hours, or about 3.5, 4 hours, the same questions. And later, I was released. 2021, my mom passed away. I could not attend her funeral because I was fearing from traveling and what happened to me. In March 30, 2022, I decided to travel again with my kids. I'm not going to deprive them from traveling. On the way heading to Cancun, my wife and my 13-year-old son, we were all selected for additional screening. My 13-year-old son, he was patted down. Everything was patted for like 3 times. He felt violated and had to explain to him, just because we are Muslim and just because he's my son, that's what's happening to him. April 2022, the way back from Cancun, as usual, met by officers after we were, asked to get out of the airplane. 2 hours later, I was released because I told them I have connection flight. And before, the condition was like that, I will give them, basically they had access to my phone, and I will give them basically a copy of the serial number of my phones. By the time I was released, I missed my flight, me and my children, and we have to stay behind. December 2022, my trip to Punta Cana. Same process on the way out, and also the same process on the way at the airport, McNamara Airport. Same process. After the officers asked me to get out of the airplane, and I complied, and they searched my bags. And then after they were done, I had 2 FBI agents that said they want to talk to me. After 2 hours, I was released since they have absolutely no evidence. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the team.
As you can see, what Mr. Altekesh stated is horrific. And it is just one experience that describes what Muslim Americans have been going through for over 20 years. 20 years after the beginning of the watchlisting of American Muslims, we are still here challenging what has become an extrajudicial Muslim registry. What we know from the portions that were leaked is that the majority of the names on the watch list are easily identifiable as Muslim. We know that Muslims get put on the list without any notice, without any inclusion provided, without being provided the reason for their inclusion, and without any real process to get off that list. And even, as we heard earlier from Ms. Masri, even when a person is removed from the watch list, they are forever tainted with the stigma of having been on the list in the first place. What is also known is that 20 years later, there is not a shred of credible evidence that the unconstitutional watch listing of American Muslims has made America even the slightest bit safer. So thank you for joining us here today. And if anybody has any questions, we'll stay around for questions.